We are recording. This is Journey of an Aesthete podcast. I am your host, Mitch Hampton, and this is an unusual episode for several reasons. One reason is that we are joined by my girlfriend, of all people, Joanne Woods, or Joanne. How would you like to be?
It's Joanne Davis Woods.
Joanne Davis Woods is your name, but there's also a Maryland in there. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. That was my mother's middle name, and it's my middle name.
Excellent. Excellent. Joanne Marilyn Davis Woods, or Jo, as she's affectionately known around these parts. I am Mitch Hampton, and it's interesting because we're doing a part one. We're doing, you're in your studio. So right now we can see your jewelry. You're wearing your jewelry, correct?
Yes. The jingles will be my bangles.
Jingles, jangle, jingle, and also the bangles and from Kismet, right? Alfred Drake. It's probably before your time. I'm going to mention the show Kismet. And Alfred Drake. Who's that? Yeah, I've got bangles, and that's your current career. That's what you do now. But you have a long, multi-career life, going from the 60s, 50s/60s up until through the 1990s. If I would understand that, it's you were going to be a physicist or a philosopher, English major, and then you got interested in paint, and you got interested in color and in design, and then you were designing. I think not designing is the word. You were painting famous movie theaters, movie palaces, and teaching color. And then you wound up in Hollywood in the 1990s, working in some of the most auspicious, important productions of those years. And for some of the greatest filmmakers of those years, CurtisHanson, and also television, NYPD Blue. And at that time you had a husband, JT, correct?
Yes, in 1999 we married.
1990 you married, and he got his start on one of the greatest films of all time, RobertWise's West Side Story. I guess he was, yeah.
There's a story about how his career began. Actually, a friend of his mother's got him a connection at a studio, and he started out as a laborer. It was like sweeping the sets, you do maintenance errands. And one night he was cleaning up the set, I think for Birdman of Alcatraz.
Yeah, it was.
And this fellow came in and asked him what he thought. And JT said that was what he wanted to do. He wanted to paint the sets and design the sets. Well, this fellow was the production designer.
Wow.
And was taken with the sincerity and enthusiasm of JT, and got him an apprenticeship.
Wow.
At the studios. That's like a wonderful opportunity to have.
It makes me think of all these. Well, of course, when you talk about production design, I'm actually limited in my knowledge. I know the name Paul Silbert. I mean, he seems to be one of the top. It was a big name, I think, of him, but I don't know all the names like you do. But that's interesting how sometimes things in life happen spontaneously out of contingency. And then what's your favorite word? Propinquity?
Propinquity.
Propinquity, yeah. Which is, it has to do with adjacent space and time. Adjacent space and time, somebody around the corner, or somebody,
Right. You're going to have more relationships with people who are physically near you.
That's right. So I do want to stick to my linear chronology. If we could go rewind to that and start from the beginning of your life. You were born in Michigan, right?
That I was.
Ashley, Michigan. And what do you want to say about that town you were born in? It's an interesting town. So just, you go, I talk too much. You go ahead and talk about what Ashley, Michigan was like in those years.
Well, Ashley, I actually moved there when I was 2, and I do have some vague recollections of suburban Detroit before that.
Really?
Yeah. You know, there were buses there. You could like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. But we moved into like a wonderful house. There was a mature garden around us. We lived down the road from my grandparents. There was an orchard. There were like beautiful flowers. You know, we even had a little hayfield, and sometimes we kept a calf, but we were within the village limits. And even though we were within the village limits, there were still no neighbors. So it was still a very isolated place for me.
You were, hold on, I thought you were in a town that was small. I mean, it's a definition of small town. What, 300 people or something?
300 people. So there were like 21 people in my graduating class. Wow. And I had been to school with them since kindergarten.
Wow. So you so does that mean you know people really well, or they're not like transient strangers? They're people that you grew up with in a way? Is that
right? Yeah.
Huh. I can't imagine what that's like. It couldn't be more different from my early experience. I don't know. It's anyhow, go ahead. That's phenomenal.
So though it had its moments. I mean, we could like ride our bicycles,
sure,
you know, out to the woods and explore, you know, the trees and rocks and this and that. You know, pick mushrooms, go see the swans in the spring in the swamp areas.
Wow.
But you know, really, I was ready to like see the sights.
You said the other day you're ready to see the world for a change. You wanted to change, and you wanted to.
Yeah.
And this is the theme of you and I are both high in curiosity. And curiosity is one of our favorite values.
That they are, yes.
Unfortunately, we're condemned, if that's the word, or stuck in a world in which the average person, I won't go so far as to say is low in curiosity, but only average. You know, curiosity is just a little bit of curiosity, not too much, and that's sometimes hard for us, I guess, a little bit. But you wanted to see things, and so is that how you? I mean, I guess you got a glimmer of the outside world from the magazines you were reading, right? Is that true? You were, I mean,
yes. I mean, my mother, you know, helpfully subscribed us in the 60s to like Look and Life. And then I spent my lunch money on Mademoiselle and Vogue. You know, I was like entranced with what was going on in New York, the Warhol scene.
So you're saying well,
London.
Wow. So you're a little girl or a teenager? I mean, or who were you at that time? And you're literally reading about Warhol and Gene Shrimpton and seeing this stuff in your.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I guess that's the power of, I guess, good mass media. I mean, today we think of media as always a pejorative way, but that's kind of educational use.
Well, back like Mademoiselle magazine, which I don't think is like this at all anymore.
No, it isn't.
It would publish fiction by Truman Capote.
Right.
You know, it published poetry by Sylvia Plath.
Yep. Seriously.
So, you know, it's not like Cosmo.
Right. Well, Cosmo was better then too. I mean,
yeah.
Cosmo but that's it's interesting. So I guess you're seeing glimmers of a world that's very different than kind of the 300 people.
Oh yes.
But I know that, you know, again, family influence. So from what I understand, your mother and father wanted you to be more. Is the word practical or crunchy or tomboyish, or what would the word have been? Because you had designs. You were attracted to beauty, I think, and glamour as a growing girl and woman. I don't want to speak for you, but that's were your parents kind of trying to squash that because they were more utilitarian or more practical, or?
Oh well, my mom was more of a tomboy. I mean, I went out to the woods hunting with my mom.
You did?
Yeah. I went along with her when she helped my grandfather bale hay. You know, she dressed me in like saddle shoes and red corduroy pants, and I wanted to wear pink with ruffles. So, you know, that wasn't what she, I guess a lot of times parents want you to do what they missed out on. And
that's true.
Yeah. She wanted me to be on the basketball team.
I mean, is the hindsight, is that kind of radical on your parent? I mean, that would be considered today radical or progressive for in the 60s for a mom wanting her daughter to do sports. That would be right. That was, I mean, I don't know. Was that unusual at that time or not?
Well, I didn't really find it that way. It was rural. It was.
Oh, okay. So it's a rural.
It was a farm. I mean, people did physical things that wasn't. There were no
boys that did physical things. It wasn't.
Pardon me?
It wasn't only the boys that did physical things. It was more of a general cultural.
Yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So you're. I mean, it puzzles me. How do you get from, on the outside looking in to Look magazine? How do you get from there to studying about ThomasPynchon and physics, wanting to become a physicist? Are we skipping over? I don't want to skip over too much, but there's an interesting.
Well, you see, I had no real plan. Going to college was like a given. I mean,
okay.
I was a valedictorian. I was a president of the senior class. Excellent. All 21 of us. But I didn't really have any plan. I didn't have any idea of what I wanted to be when I grew up. I just knew that I was curious and I wanted to know about things. I wanted to see, I was kind of a big fish in a small pond.
I see.
So, I also wanted to see where my level was.
Yeah.
And people talked about, the big questions of life.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't trying to answer them. I just wanted to know what they were. So
you said you weren't trying. So that's interesting. So I guess what the question, well, first of all, there's what is the question, right? Meaning, I mean, there's double meanings. Of course, I don't mean it as what is the question. I mean, what question is you're going to ask? I mean, the more prosaic, the question could be, what is the meaning of life? Or why are we here? Or why is there something rather than nothing? Or is there a God? What is the meaning?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. But I mean, I guess if I understand correctly, are you saying you were kind of more excited about the question itself than the answers or what the answers would be? Or?
Well, I didn't presume.
Okay.
I mean, since none of these questions have been completely satisfactorily answered, I didn't expect I would come up with an answer to them. But I wanted to know how people thought about them.
Okay.
So I guess that's why I ended up studying physics and writing and philosophy. I ended up at Michigan State.
MSU.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. 30,000 students at that time.
2,000?
30,000 students.
30,000. Wow. And that's 1970, right? 71.
Yeah.
So you were beginning in 1970s, my favorite decade, my favorite era. You were right there in its beginning. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about the dorm and your best friend that you had, didn't you have a neighbor in the dorm that played Tapestry too much? Carol Kane's Tapestry?
That was on one side of our dorm room, yes. The other side was the woman who, instead of going downstairs to the practice rooms, would be learning to play her violin next door.
Right.
Yeah.
So these are the kinds of things. I mean, I don't want to, but you're studying pretty, I should say, very elevated stuff, right? Because if you were studying ThomasPynchon, am I right?
Well, I was reading ThomasPynchon for entertainment.
Really?
And I ended up at Michigan State. They had a couple of what they called residential colleges within. The dorm I lived in was part of the arts and literature college. That's where I lived, but the college that I was part of was Lyman Briggs, and That was science and humanities.
Okay. So that was, but I mean, it's really quite something. I mean, yeah. So what made you? Well, maybe that's not the question, but you were studying physics, right?
Right.
Do you want to talk about the physics departments or any of that, or is that because that's kind of a interesting thing to study. Physics is not,
Well, yeah, it's not everybody.
Everybody.
Just maybe, notes about the fact that in these classes, generally I was the only woman.
Yeah. Okay.
And, you would find out, I mean, I had this like 3-term quantum mechanics class, in all these classes, you had lots of homework to do.
Oh, yeah.
I found out finally, like in the 3rd term, that, the homework that was due Friday morning, everybody else got together in the professor's office the night before, discussed what happened on the show Kung Fu the night before, and then did the homework together.
Wow.
But
is that your favorite show at that time, or?
Yeah, that was the thing that was being watched. Yeah, that was. So, you kind of like felt, oh, wow, there was just all this stuff going on that I didn't know about. But I did have, within Lyman Briggs, there was a general relativity and cosmology seminar.
Yeah.
That I took, and I had to write a thesis, and finally it was about post-relativistic literature.
Right.
So that's where ThomasPynchon
Absolutely
came in, and actually the Alexandria Quartet, because it has 3 dimensions of direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 4th is time.
That's
so
right.
You have your X, Y, Z, and then
right.
T. So
would it be fair to say that in that particular milieu there was a real I don't know if collaboration is too strong a word, but there was a friendliness between the humanities and the sciences, right? Because these are things in physics, and yet they apply to works of fiction. People writing, Lawrence Durrell and ThomasPynchon they're not historians per se. They're writing imaginative fiction, novels and short stories, or
right. It it deals with the place of scientific paradigms in the culture.
Right. Of course. Sure.
And trends in thinking and trends in science and trends in art seem to can follow.
Mm-hmm. At that time, yeah, maybe all times. I don't know. I'm not sure, but that's a different.
Yeah, you can make up a thought that it's consistency throughout the centuries.
Sure. So I want to go back to you're at Michigan, and then you're studying these things. But what is decisive in terms of what you're ultimately going to choose? Because I know that in your life you also lived in both Milwaukee and Chicago. So you have this, and then also I know that your love of travel and even hitchhiking. We're going to get into that because I know I reminded myself to talk about a different relationship to hitchhiking. Then it was important to you, I guess, to hitchhike, and what comes first, or what was I'm sort of I guess I don't want to.
Oh well, I mean after I got my my Bachelor of Science degree.
Wow.
Instead of going to grad school, I just wanted to see the world. It was time.
It was time.
Yeah. We moved to Chicago, and I didn't really want a job that would take up all my time and interest in.
Okay.
So I actually ended up being a figure model at the School of the Art Institute. And so that was,
all that thought. Is this the famous Art Institute of Chicago, the great that
yes,
institute?
yes, with the lions out front. Yeah.
You do, of course. They would want you as a figure model because you were and are beautiful. That's a thing. So I'm just trying to understand. So are you? You mentioned that you. So were you actually planning? Were you in your mind saying to myself, I need to pick employment that will give me the time to work on certain projects? Is that kind of, did you think all that through or plan all that out, or do you understand what I mean? That's kind of, yeah.
Well,
I guess foresight is the word, foresight.
Well, in a way, I had decided years before that I really didn't want to spend a big chunk of my life putting in hours at something that just bored me.
Okay.
Number two, my school was so small that there were no art classes.
Right.
So this was like a wonderful opportunity to study art from the other side of the easel.
Right, as a model.
Yeah.
Is there anything about your time as a model? Well, I know, didn't you also work? You also worked as a. Were you not a go-go dancer at that time as well? Or?
Well, that was when I was in college. Yeah.
Oh, early. Okay, that was when you were in college, and that would have been the same year, 70, 71. So I'm just trying to understand. So, a lot of times in life when we're trying to make a plan, like we all make plans. I make plans for this show. I mean, you always have to plan. What is it about? I'm going to ask you kind of an oddball question. I mean, you seem to be good at planning. What I mean is at that time, you seem to have it figured out that if I do this particular occupation, you will have time to pursue these other things. Or you seem to have figured out, I guess, how a way of travel. Well, you talk, because I talk too much because it's
freedom, from a set schedule.
Yeah.
Payment, which is generally higher than most entry-level or mid-level jobs.
Right.
So economics was like a big thing.
Sure.
But to travel, and especially if you wanted to do like long-term traveling, like month-long trips, or sometimes we would be gone for like 4 months at a time in South America. You have to keep your overhead low.
Right. Well, you say South America. When was the first time you left the country and actually traveled in another country? What year would that have been, or what was the circumstances? What was that?
So that was probably 77.
Oh, later. Okay. During the disco punk era. Okay. So I don't want to jump that. That's kind of further ahead. So in other words, in the early 70s, all your travel was more.
Well, in the early 70s, I was in college.
Oh, you were in college, so you weren't able to really travel.
Right. Like my girlfriend and I would sometimes like hitchhike.
There you go, hitchhike.
For like a little entertainment.
For entertainment.
There was one day in the summer, and I don't really know if we had any particular place we were going. But, it was kind of rural, and this older gentleman picked us up. I think, he didn't have any family. And he ended up taking us to this little like county fair, and we all played bingo.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
I think everybody had a good time.
Yeah.
It was like a more innocent time.
Huh. Well, it's interesting because I don't really know. I mean, this theme has come up, like you're, for example, you're reading these kind of very, I should say again, complex novels, whether it's John Barth's Saltweed Factor or what it doesn't have to be Pynchon. But then you said, well, somebody over here says you should do this. And then you end up figure modeling at one of the greatest arts schools in the United States. I mean, the Institute of Chicago is an amazing place. I mean, so then but then somehow you figure out a way to hitchhike with your and play bingo. So I guess it's kind of it's interesting that the kind of the I don't know if the word is happenstance or just the kind of the the unpredictability of life. And it seems like it's almost like you were utilizing the spontaneity that's in life, if that makes any sense, to chart your course. Is that I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I did want to keep enough room for randomness.
Okay.
So that when opportunity popped up, it could be taken advantage of.
Okay. And so that was, I guess that's what you were doing. So you're in Chicago, and so how long were you in Chicago, and then what happened?
So I met a fellow, another figure model.
Oh, okay.
And so he was my traveling partner
I see.
to Central and South America.
Wow.
So he was adventuresome, so we made a good pair, and we put in a lot of miles. We would spend maybe 3 or 4 weeks in the summer in Idaho and Wyoming.
Wow.
In the mountains. In the Tetons, in the Sawtooths.
Wow.
And then in the winter, a month up to 4 months in Central and South America.
So you're spending, hold on. So you're spending 3-4 months in Central South America, these countries. I guess I guess you could talk about some of the countries in the late 70s, 77, 78.
Yeah.
Just whatever comes to mind. It's just remarkable to me that you. And then of course there's this other thing that's important, because you're developing the skill of the paint.
Well, that's what Ty had been doing a couple of things for work. He shoot horses. He was a farrier. But then we started painting houses, interiors and exteriors. And then it got to be that, when we would come back from South America, say in March, we had a list of people who were waiting for us to come and paint do their work.
Wow.
So it was just very flexible, it really worked for us. But we were trying to go overland to South America. We were trying to get down to Panama. And in a lot of these countries, we tried buses, we've taken trains. But sometimes we would just hitchhike through the countries, you'd meet people.
Sure.
So we got to the border of Nicaragua and Honduras. We were coming through Honduras. And what we had been wearing was army surplus. The Vietnam era parachute pants,
Oh yeah, that's right.
And the Nicaraguans searched our luggage and said, we have to take this clothing. And we're going, well, we won't have anything. And they said, well, if you come in and you wear these clothes, the guerrillas will shoot you to get the uniforms, and our soldiers will shoot you thinking you're a guerrilla. So we said, can we have them back if we leave? Yeah. And they said we could. So, you were automatic weapons, walked us back to the border. Once you got to the Honduran border, the soldiers are sitting on the ground eating candy. So there's such a variety of attitudes between the Honduran soldiers and Nicaraguan soldiers.
Wow.
Yeah. they laughed and said, "Oh, you didn't like Nicaragua?" And
so I know you were interested. So also along this time, you were becoming, I don't really like to label people, so least of all someone I'm closest to, or but you have to use words, and I see you as a naturalist in a way. Would that be fair, or at least a lay? You're interested in geology and science and plants and this kind of thing. And were you already getting interest in sort of the volcanoes and talk a little bit about that and how that?
Oh, well, that's from, my childhood in Ashley, because, there wasn't a lot to do. So, I read encyclopedias and, you have like comic books with dinosaurs and volcanoes and, ancient ruins and orchids and birds. So, yeah, there was a lot to see there.
I mean, that's and that carried over into these international travel, So you mentioned Belize a lot. Was that important to you? Your time in Belize?
We ended up spending a lot of time in Belize, and actually, I bought some beachfront land there. Ultimately, down the road from a resort that Coppola developed.
Okay,
but it was interesting, at that time. Belize is an interesting country because it's the only country down there that English is the primary language. It was never conquered by Spain. It was pirates,
right?
English pirates,
out
there to raid the Spanish treasure ships.
Yeah.
So it was like a very different culture than the other countries.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I have not been to this part of the world at all, and so that it would be. And you're there in an unusual time. You're there late 70s, early 80s, and also you're wearing eyeliner and makeup, right? Were you more? Did they used to tease you that you like to keep your standards of style up as you travel?
Yeah, well, we were hitching to trying to get to this little town that we had heard sounded interesting because there was a river, and on one side it was a granite pine forest ecosystem. The other side of the river was a limestone jungle. So, we wanted to see this. The British soldiers had a camp in that vicinity. So as we were hitchhiking, this fellow picked us up and gave us a ride to the crossroads. And he did mention my eyeliner.
Yeah, that's right.
I did, it was just fun. There was like a limited amount of fashion that, you could like indulge.
Sure. I mean, that's,
you have a backpack, you only have a few things.
I mean, you told me once you were fascinated with volcanoes. Is that true? I mean, maybe that's just one of many things that.
Well, Ashley was flat. Ashley was flat like a tabletop. There really wasn't much in the way of interesting geology there. Mm-hmm. So, in Ecuador, that we enjoyed visiting a number of times, we visited several volcanoes. Didn't really climb to the caldera, but the government did have a nice setup where they would they'd have like a little cabin at the final approach to the top. So we went to 3 different volcanoes, and that was arduous, I have to say, because you're starting out at 14,000 feet. Okay. So already there's not a lot of oxygen in the air. And then you're going up to 17. And so you're like trudging along.
Okay.
And there was one refuge that had like more features. So this fellow with a tump line, that's the line that you put across your forehead to carry packages.
Okay.
He had 2 wooden cases of Coca-Cola in glass bottles.
Wow.
He like just trotted up the hill while like every step we were taking was hard. But
I mean, that's a level of I don't know what word to use. Adventurous. I mean, venturesome. Venturousness, right? That's that I don't have. I mean, not everybody. So we may both be curious, but you have a kind of a fearlessness, but I think a lot of it was your attitude. I think you once said that you have to have I don't know if the word is will, but a kind of an assumption that things are going to be okay, or that you're gonna, or maybe love of life is it. I don't really know. It's interesting
yeah, both of those things. I mean, especially if you're like hitchhiking across the country in February, you really do need to have some confidence that you're just not going to like freeze into a little ball alongside the freeway. But.
Sure. I mean, that's well, that's kind of I guess being, what's the word I would use? Sort of, well, each of us is of course, each of us is, you probably get tired of me saying, each of us is unique, in ways that we don't often acknowledge. We tend to try to hide the uniqueness of people because we try to funnel people. I don't know. We try to put the label on the person and try to say where they fit. But we humans are not quite, don't fit into those classifications so easily, and it's not a thing. But you're Honduras, Belize, Ecuador. How do you get from that to, again, the thing we're talking about, the art of painting, right? You become, right? Is that?
Well, that was what we ended up doing between our travels, is painting houses. And then like bit by bit, we were like, doing antique stores and doing, some stenciling and some different things. So there was a time that the relationship and the business split up.
Oh, okay.
And I sort of took my side of the business into more decorative work,
Okay.
Faux finishes, and different things. So I wasn't traveling as much then, and I was able to develop a clientele in Milwaukee that, wanted more creative things in their homes. The people that I were meeting, artists and musicians and cinephiles. That kind of like brings you into like a different milieu of people.
So you change milieus. I mean, I'm a lifelong cinephile, as you know. I've seen more movies, you'll agree, than most people, right? Thousands of movies. But there's even things I haven't seen, and there's things you probably have seen that I haven't, and you've seen far less. I mean, I always told myself that the reason why you probably haven't seen as many movies, you're too damn busy working on movies. Especially in the 90s. But so you're in the 80s, you're let's see, you're painting houses, but then you start painting. Is it that you start painting commercial institutions or public spaces? Is that the change, or is it? Do you know what I mean?
Some we would go to this one theater, the big movie palace on the east side of Milwaukee, the Oriental Theater, and it had kind of fallen on hard times, but that's where you would go to see like Berlin Alexanderplatz or whatever. It was great.
Is that what you saw there?
Yeah. Bad timing. Lots of and we would always kind of like fantasize about, oh, wouldn't you love to paint this place? So as years go by,
it just reminds me. You know what I got that I'm going to bring over is the Criterion. Have we watched the Criterion Bad Timing?
I think it's at the house here.
Oh yeah, have we seen it? We haven't watched it yet, have we?
No.
Yeah. Note to self.
Yeah.
So you're saying, wouldn't it be nice? So you're in these buildings and you're thinking, so wouldn't it be nice to become reality? How did it become something you're actually doing and getting paid to do? That's kind of remarkable in a way. I don't.
Well, so what was that word? Propinquity.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of friends who were artists, and I was getting more and more work to do, and so I would hire them sometimes.
Okay.
And then they would hire me back. There was a project for painting some murals for one of the schools. So, working on this, apparently people figured that I had really quite an eye for color, and it was really easy for me to mix color.
Right.
I already, was good with a brush. So I ended up substitute teaching a color class at the Milwaukee Art Museum, and then ultimately teaching my own class that I designed there for several seasons.
So you moved to Milwaukee, you painting houses, and then painting this incredible movie theater, famous movie theater, and then you're actually teaching classes in color.
Yeah. Well, you see, the teaching the classes is what got me to paint the theater.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah. There was a big party at the art museum one night to celebrate, I don't know what anniversary of it. And a woman came in looking for somebody that could help do faux finishes, because she was working with a group of people who was going to be restoring the Oriental Theater.
Right.
So she came in, talked to a couple of people. They sent her to me.
Okay.
And, there I was. So that was like my next project is, restoring this theater. It was amazing.
Do you mind answering the question? Because not all of us, I'm certainly no expert. What is a faux finish?
It makes it's like faux, it's like false.
That part, I know. Yeah.
So it can be wood, it can be marble, it can be leather. I'm really good at making fake concrete, fake leather. My thing in the studios ended up being wood. There's lots of different patterns of wood grain, and so
when you said your thing in the studio, so you I'm just top of my head again, some of the titles you were part of were Speed, Keanu Reeves picture, Confidential. Your favorite was 7, I think.
Oh, that was amazing. But Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Dracula, yeah, with the one with Gary Oldman and
right, yeah.
So that's very much the 90s, the other golden age after the 70s, of course, and Hollywood was the 90s. And I guess you met your husband JT. Now his career goes back to the 60s, right?
Right.
All those westerns, and he was very associated with Michael Cimino. You see in the corner there, I'm pointing at the Isabelle Huppert. His big film was Heaven's Gate, and then for Michael Cimino, the Great Debacle, and he was part of all that, right? He was
yes,
amazing.
DeerHunter, he did DeerHunter before Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, I know you have some, but this is you come in a little later. Well, I guess I don't want to get too far ahead, because it was really on a TV movie, right? Was it a TV movie that got you into that?
Yes, it was, because of the Oriental Theater.
Because of the Oriental Theater.
Because the TV movie was about John Dillinger. And so he was shot in front of a movie theater.
That's right.
It came to Milwaukee to do this project, and they were scouting that theater.
Yeah. Wow.
Somebody said, I know who painted this. The production designer turned to them and said, you better find her.
So it's because of that that's amazing. So they said there's this Joanne Davis Woods.
I was just Joanne Davis then.
Joanne Davis, I'm sorry. Yeah, Joanne Davis.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who did this. Go to her. She's the one you'd have to talk to. And so for some reason they talk to you, and then you go to California, right?
Yeah, I kind of, left town with a circus.
Yeah.
Though I didn't leave with that group, but a couple of months later.
To be fair, I want to stay a little bit. You loved Milwaukee, right? You were very good, very attached. There's culture in Milwaukee. Is there anything about that time in the music and just things in general in Milwaukee that stand out to you now when you think about Milwaukee? It's probably too many things, but any before you get to Los Angeles that you missed or that you liked or.
Well, there was like a really good theater scene then, and still is. I mean, there were like a number of theater groups, Theater X being one of them.
Yeah.
The art museum was being run by people who were really like more adventuresome and really trying to put themselves on the map. So there was like wonderful things going on there. The music was grand. We had the Bodines, we had Semi-Twang, and we had like Paul Seabar and the Milwaukeeans and the R&B Cadets. So there was just a lot of dancing. There was a lot of movies to go to, a lot of art openings. It was like there was like a good crowd of people. We had our gathering places. So it was a lot of fun.
But that fun had to be short circuited because you joined the circus because you went to.
Yeah, I left town, packed up.
What's the year you go to Los Angeles? 92, 93?
89.
Oh, 89. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. What do you experience upon entering LA? Remember JamesEllroy's quote? What does he always say? LA, come on vacation, go home on probation. Is that what his is?
Oh, really? Oh, I missed that one. It's
all right. Yeah.
Not exactly like Vegas,
Oh, no. But talk about LA, Los Angeles, LA, 89, 90, 91. What do you experience? What?
What did I experience? Well, fortunately, I was able to get a room with the mother of a carpenter that had worked on Dillinger, because I get there and I realize, for one thing, I don't have a credit card. I don't have a credit history.
Okay.
And this is a big city with a lot of flaky people.
That's true.
And so to even get an apartment, turns into like a different sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
But I learned that, again, it's like the people that you have to leverage, whatever you have.
Yeah, that's true.
So I was able to go to this one set shop, looking for a painting job. I had my paintbrushes with me, and they said, no, we don't need anybody. And then I said, well, where's the boss? Oh, he's outside. I went and found him and told him, well, Doug told me that I should come talk to you. And so it was okay. Well, can you start tomorrow?
Wow. So you just start. What is the picture? A TV show or TV movie? What is
that? Was just, that was like a non-union set shop.
Okay.
They did commercials.
Okay.
There were like Disney retail stores for a while in malls, and there were like these whole little set pieces. That's what we did until until it was time to join the union. And I was like very fortunate that the
Sure.
first project that I worked on in LA went union. The Favor, like BradPitt, first projects. So, finally, okay, I've joined the union. I've like saved up all this money so that I can like give them my entry fee.
That's right.
And I make a list of all the studios and the people that I need to see to get a job, to like introduce myself to them.
Wow.
And, I have my map. It's before Google.
Oh yeah, before the internet, you had to have
a guide with all the pages. So my first one is Universal. I have my photos from Dillinger. I have my photos from the Oriental Theater. They said, okay, can you start tomorrow at 6?
Okay.
So I don't have to go anywhere else. I guess I need to go back to the set shop and quit.
Wow.
So it was just, good luck, timing, again.
Yeah. Huh. So the Favor, and then after the Favor, so there's a lot of pictures in T. So I guess that's how you met JT, right? I guess.
Yeah, I met him at Fox Studios. Yeah.
So the studios at that time, I'm going to ask you this. It's an odd question, I know, but bear with me. Was there a studio? I mean, did the studios kind of run together, or was there a studio that had the best equipment or the most tasteful setup, or were they all more? I mean, is there something that comes to mind?
They had different personalities.
Oh, wow.
In a way, there was like one place where everybody who ran it was a Jehovah's Witness. There was like another place where the guy was just really an asshole and wanted a cut of, people's like tool rental. There was like another place that, I don't know. They were just kind of like assholes. And then Fox, now this is not Fox News.
No.
This is like 20th century.
This is what we call the good Fox, right?
Fox. And that was the place I liked to work the best. The guy who ran the paint department was an artist himself.
Yeah.
I felt more at home there.
More at home there. What were the pictures that you worked on there at Fox? What were comes to mind?
Well, we did TV between features, so they didn't Speed was like set there. But on the lot itself, it was mostly TV, and it was
China Beach, right?
Oh, no? That was before my time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, JT worked at that. That was.
So if you would have, I guess what you said, MIPD Blue, another.
Right, and Ally McBeal.
Ally McBeal, okay.
Yeah, Northern Exposure.
Wow.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And then, you would kind of leave and go off and, do something, there was this really, Seven, I mean.
Seven is that,
yeah. So that was a lot of location shooting. And I think that was at Columbia when they had, set work on stage. But yeah, Speed, we did at Fox. You needed like a really tall stage for the elevator to be built.
I mean, I'm thinking, so when I think about those things together, it's kind of, so I know that Ally McBeal would be offices, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it would be like offices. And then you said what else? Courtrooms,
police stations, and hospital rooms.
Hospitals were hospital wings.
Yeah.
You're working on the walls. I know when you and I watch movies, you always look at the walls of a production. It's a studio picture, especially any kind of pictures. You say, well, how do they do the walls?
Well, for the most
What
part,
are the biggest mistakes? I mean, when we say things, oh, I don't like that wall, or I do love that wall. What are you talking about when you what's explained to the audience? What is that thing?
I am talking about if the wall has history, if it looks like it has history. Because if you build a set and paint the walls, it'll look like a new clean wall.
And that's not good. You don't want that, you know.
No, not unless, you are doing a show about remodeling a house.
Right.
So, you need to have dirt, and you need to have the dirt that would build up authentically. You need to have smudges by the light switch. And then also, it's not always just color, it's also texture.
Yeah, texture.
So you have like this old apartment building that has been around since the 20s, and these doors have been painted so many times that there's all this lumpy paint on them. So yeah, we would be making lumpy paint.
You have to create paint that's purposefully lumpy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
When you say the word texture, I always think of that word now. I always think of David Lynch and the word texture. Mm-hmm. There's that wonderful one of his documentaries there where he says everything for me is texture, and he'll go on and on about aesthetically, quite very serious, profound. I think. Do you have anything to add about texture? I mean,
he's talking about more metaphysical texture, right?
Oh. I don't know, but
not just visual texture.
Oh, okay.
There's kind of a zeitgeisty thing that I'm assuming that he's referring to.
No, I think he's referring to the texture of because he's materials.
Yeah.
But maybe he does mean other things too. Of course, he's Lynch. He does always mean all kinds of things. But I'm just wondering if the word means the same thing, because texture, when you're talking about, I guess creating something lived in, something that I am just I'm Mitch Hampton, or I'm Mitch Hampton, or I'm Mitch Jones, and I'm sitting in front on my sofa watching this thing. Mm-hmm. Watching one of my favorite shows is 90210, right? I'm watching if I'm watching Beverly Hills 90210, or I'm watching Somebody Somewhere. Very different kinds of shows. Mm-hmm. Both shows I love. Somebody Somewhere, you're in someone's down market house in this rural, or you're in this church. So yeah, the church basement and Somebody Somewhere, the Duplass Brothers show. Did they do that church basement pretty good? The bar, I don't know. It's just hard to know. Do you look and see what?
There's not a whole lot of personality in those sets because they are modern, and
I see.
They're not exotic, and they're not really down market, scuzzy, dangerous looking places at all.
Right.
So, but they're fine because they've made the good choices of the colors and the wallpaper.
Right.
And
also the other thing that the other thing the word texture comes to mind is Seven. Seems to be the movie Seven is sort of a horror police picture, gothic, and that's all about texture. And that's very. So what I was going to say is that that's very different dealing with, crime scenes and these kinds of matters.
That was amazing. That was amazing to work on.
And go say more about that.
So much that. The fellow, I think, was it gluttony?
Yeah, that's one of the sins. Yeah.
He would go between his sofa and the kitchen, and we would wear the carpeting down with power sanders to make this little path, and then pour Coca-Cola on the carpeting so that it would be sticky, and then gather lint and debris.
Yeah.
There was just so much going on. Yeah. Just deep levels of detail that, people, that if you're successful, people don't notice what you've done because they think it's real.
So you're going for kind of an invisibility? Would that be a way?
Right.
Purposeful invisibility that nonetheless is based on an irony, actually, I think, right? Would that be, it might be correct use of the word irony? No, I don't know, because there's a sense in which you're creating something artificial to look like it's not artificial. You're inventing something that looks not invented, right? Uninvented.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
It's an interesting thing. It's like it's this invented thing, but it's not. But you want to create the illusion of it never having just been found or discovered. Like it's just somebody stumbled upon something.
Right. On Speed, we had to make, there are these dividers along the freeway sometimes. They call them K-rail, and they're concrete. And, every once in a while, a car or a truck gets too close to them, and then there are these black streaks on them. So, to make that look authentic, you really have to think about the intersection of the rubber tire and the shape of the K-rail. So for somebody who looks at things and likes to see things and how they came to be, it's a fantastic job.
To see things how they came to be. So it's almost like you're doing it's almost like it's connected to other things. It sounds like archaeology or something. I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know what the you've looked at the mildew growing on the side of the house in New Orleans, or the way the paint chips on the steps. It's like all those things that you actually noticed come to be useful in your job. When you were working on all of these many productions, did it ever occur to you, it probably didn't, that you were working in a golden age? That future film historians would say this was a great period? This period of the Boogie Nights and the Ice Storm and the Magnolias and the LA Confidential and all these and the major, this would be considered an important era in film? Or it was just more, didn't think in those terms, or I don't know.
I have to admit that I didn't think in those terms.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you think when you hear people say that now? Do you sort of agree or not? I mean, do you?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, especially right now when it's just all superhero movies.
Yeah.
It looks more golden, through the back window.
Yeah, it's funny. Did you want to talk about painting itself, the physical act of painting, or no? I know you love paint. You love painting. I know you you're infinitely frustrated, right, by bad painting technique or bad. Talk about that. What is that?
Painting, even painting a room, or painting doors, for me, can become a moment of flow, actually, of zen. And, I would be talking to people in the studios, and, they would talk about how boring it was that they were just painting these walls. And, I couldn't say it to them, but my response was that, well, you're just not paying enough attention. For some reason, I just really like the physical act of spreading paint on walls. And paint itself is so amazing that, in these years, people can pretty much have whatever color they can think of. They can own that color. And, clearly that was not the case.
Hold that thought. Are you saying there were other times when that wasn't a possibility? Because is that have to do with the evolution of materials over time?
Yeah.
What is that exactly? Is it just innovation? Would that be the way to put it, or what?
Innovation in marketing. I mean, so was it in the around the Victorian era? synthetic pigments started being developed.
Okay.
Before that, it was this mostly, minerals. So like things tend to just be brown, earth tones. You just
Right.
you just really didn't have the big wide range, and then blue, of course, was very expensive. You'll see like old paintings, religious paintings, where the Madonna's robes haven't been finished. They're still white because the money didn't come in to buy the blue.
Let me ask you a question. Do you ever, I know this is more my feeling than yours. You would not probably care, but I feel remiss that in all those years you never did a 70s period piece. Or was there one for television or movies you ever had to do well, you did, but see, you did LA Confidential, which is, so this is a funny thing. You did this very classy, tasteful, mid-century Guy Pearce, right? Guy Pearce and
Russell Crowe, yeah.
Russell Crowe, I'm sorry.
Both of them, yeah.
Yeah. People probably get more excited about the fact you worked on that because that's what people, well, say something about that. Why do people love that era so much? Love Eames chairs and love Dragnet or 50s, love, is it just, I'm putting aside whether there's an objective normative aspect of it's just good. Some would say, well, it's just good, but let's pretend that it isn't just good, that it's an arbitrary preference. Let me try that on. And, there's this weird guy named Mitch Hampton that would get more excited about.
Well,
in other words, so what I love about the movie 20th Century Women is that they're recreating 1979. That's much more interesting to me in San Diego than trying to get a police department in downtown Los Angeles in 55. That doesn't interest me. But that's me. But talk about that. What is that? Just what people.
Well, it's the age of the viewer also.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
There's going to be like a little more, mystery and romance, from different eras, depending on, when you grew up, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's movies that you watched. How many times have you seen Chinatown?
Well, I think at least 4.
So I've seen that about 20 times, I think. If I had to guess how many times, maybe a little less, just because it just happens, to see. I don't know why. I've seen The Last Detail probably 30 times. But I actually watch The Last Detail once every year. I love that film. But I just mentioned Chinatown does seem like a very romantic. You look at Chinatown, that's Paul Silbert, right? I think.
Yeah.
It's, you just look at that; it is beautiful looking, and the music and the score it is beautiful looking. So I would be a fool. If I'm not going to literally sit here and tell people. In other words, so there is something sort of sophisticated and beautiful about that film. Yeah. And there's something beautiful about LA Confidential. If you look at that. I'm not going to lie. Of course.
There's just something about the lighting in 70s TV and TV movies that I don't care for. It's it's very flat to me.
Oh yeah. That's what I like. Of course, what I like about it, I like it's flat. So you look at it, you're like, oh, it's ugly to you. Like if you look at the Rockford Files or.
I love the Rockford Files, but I don't think it's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, it is true that there are things that are beautiful. That I get that. Well, movies today are kind of ugly, wouldn't you say? There's been a lot of discussion of, right? People, one says that people make videos about how everything became gray. They stopped using color, and is that true? Like you look at films, it's all charcoals and grays. That's the trend now, right? If you look at.
Well, it's what a limited, unsaturated palette.
Yeah.
there are trends, you know.
So there's the trend to grayness, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's why when a production is not that, like La La Land is one of the reasons I like that film, is that it's the opposite. Or we just watched, what did we watch? Inherent Vice is beautiful. So someone like PTA always photographs well, right? He knows how to make film.
You know, Wes Anderson is not doing great.
Oh yeah, I mean, is that an example of just, I guess, creators that it's important to them that the thing look good, or the thing not be gray or all gray or dull, or I guess that's the.
Well, you know, isn't it like, you know, the set is participating more in the film?
Of course, yeah. Of course, that's true.
Yeah.
And so you were 98, 99. What are the things about living in Los Angeles in those years? The OJ. Well, not the OJ Bronco chase, but the you worked on 12 Angry Men, right, for William Friedkin,
right?
Which, among other things, had an incredible cast, right? Ossie Davis, Jack Lemmon, Courtney Vance. Who else was in that thing? Just
Hume Cronin. Oh gosh, you know, George C. Scott.
I mean, that's
yeah.
Friedkin. I mean. Now, was that exciting because the material was exciting and the director and all these people?
One of the reasons that it was exciting is because they shot in order. They shot it like a play.
Really?
Yeah.
And what makes that better or more exciting than out of chronology or out of order? What is that? What is that advantage of that, or what?
Well, the story, you know, continues in a natural way.
Okay.
You know, everything is shot like in one room, so you can do that. You're not like,
sure,
you know, moving to a location or anything. But I think it changes the way the actors approach their work.
Interesting. I know that production was notorious, not notorious. There was a notorious event that occurred in Los Angeles, right, during that.
Right. Like in the Valley, there was some armed robbery, and now I can't remember exactly the details. But when the police showed up, they were like actually outgunned by the robbers. You know, there was a standoff that lasted several hours. And it was so interesting, like all work stopped on the film, and we were using the monitors to like watch TV news coverage. The policemen ended up going to local pawn shops to buy more weapons.
Wow.
So, you know, it's not a good thing when, you know, that
the police department doesn't have enough guns or ammunition or ammo to just.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, and then there was the Rodney King.
Oh yeah, well that's earlier. Oh, that was so.
That was earlier. Yeah.
Far earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you first came. That's kind of close to when you first came to Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's probably about a year after I got there. I was living in the Hollywood Hills, and I was working at Paramount. You know, it smelled smoky that morning. You know, I didn't really know what it was. And then they like sent us home from work early.
Wow.
It's when the girls from the Valley came and looted Fredericks of Hollywood. There's some crazy stories.
Do you want to share your stories now, or is that?
Well, I mean, that's like the highlight.
Oh, highlight.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It was like different people that you wouldn't expect to be doing looting were taking advantage of the situation.
Huh.
It's kind of like here before a snowstorm.
Oh yeah.
You know, you hit the supermarket on your way home.
You do?
Everybody was buying champagne and beer and baby diapers and yeah.
Here, you mean where we live, or?
No, that was in LA.
LA, yeah.
It's like, you know, everybody was going to be hunkering down for the the time being for the riots. So they wanted to be comfortable at home. Didn't want their babies to run out of diapers.
And it's hard to think about that now because of the fires, right? I remember you were looking on the computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where is your house now? What do you want to talk? Is it too?
It's fine.
Oh,
yeah.
I know you were checking it.
Yeah, it was like not that far from the Altadena and Pasadena fires, but
yeah,
that area is safe.
Well, when I think about Los Angeles, I don't know. I think about so many things. I think about Griffith Park. I don't know why. The observatory. I don't know why. It just seems so beautiful to me that.
Yeah.
And the walking there for exercise, and all that.
Yeah.
And then places. What are some of your favorite places in those years? And the places to go?
Well, I mean, I had an apartment that was actually pretty close to the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, okay.
So, we could like walk up there when there wasn't an event and wander around and, sing on stage with no audience.
Okay.
Or we would go to the Pacific Dining Car for brunch. That was.
The dining car is amazing food. Is it still good? Is it still? Do you know?
Well, I haven't been there in quite a few years, but I think it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's House of Pies, of course, and there's
an Apple Pan in Beverly Hills. It's a good.
What is it? Is it Chaya or I don't know what? Maya, I forget the name of that restaurant. Really.
Yeah, Chaya. Yeah, Chaya. I don't know if it's there anymore. But it was nice in that you could get to, wooded trails so quickly. You would go hiking in Altadena or or go farther out to like Mount Wilson. The observatory out there, just beach, mountains, you're like in the middle and you can get to a lot of things.
Oh, yeah. It's a different way of living, isn't it?
It is. It's like sometimes too much time spent in the car, but there's like lots of things to enjoy. I'm really glad that, downtown has been renewed. The Music Center is an amazing building.
Yeah.
That helped start, the transition from, I don't know, the dreariness of downtown LA.
Clifton's. Yeah.
Bob's Frolic Room.
Bob's Frolic Room. Did you go to Clifton's ever?
No, I don't think so. So, yeah, I think we're about, except for the fact that we did go to a great film on location in the Philippines.
Yes.
So
I'll talk about that.
Is that mention the opportunity for color making the Philippines into Thailand?
Okay.
So I didn't get my, I had wanted to do a film that was like about an all-time Chinese opera company because I thought there would be lots of color. But at least doing Broke Down Palace, which I consider the most beautiful prison picture ever made.
Broke Down Palace is a film by
Jonathan.
One of my favorite filmmakers, very underrated, Jonathan Kaplan. I guess he's more known for The Accused. Was that his more famous?
Probably, yeah. I think that's his.
Right, but just Truck Turner with Isaac Hayes. I mean, he has a great career. But you were working on Broke Down Palace. So that's So what are you having to deal with in a production like that? That's an issue of not just color, right? But you said different kinds of color. We'll talk more about that because I don't know.
Well, Thailand,
Okay.
the culture uses more color
Okay.
than our culture does.
Right.
It's more tropical. You think of like kind of Caribbean colors.
Yeah.
There's just great saturated colors or her wonderful pastels. Everything's strong. It was fun. You had a lot of aged paint and crackled paint. That was great. Manila itself was a real challenge.
Huh.
Because the economy had grown, more people bought automobiles. It's on an island. There's, you're not just going to build more roads. Traffic was amazing. People would get on buses to go to work. The buses would get stuck in traffic. They would get off the bus, go into neighborhoods, knock on people's doors to use their bathroom.
Oh.
And then go and get back on the bus and wait some more.
That's a very different way to live. I mean, that's
yeah. So, we started working. We would go to work at 2 a.m.
Oh, start work at 2 a.m.
Because if we went to work at 7, it would take us over 2 hours to get to the set. But if we went to work at 2, it would take 15 minutes.
Okay.
And then coming home, it could take 4 hours.
So I should say that's a very unusual gig. That production, unusual production. So would you say that's atypical or typical of some of the things that studio productions would have to deal with? Or that's unusual, right? That's
well, it depends on where you are. I mean, JT, did DeerHunter, and they had their own
issues,
strange things, about military equipment and
right
access to military equipment that they just like went over the border and borrowed some from Burma. Because
what was his response to? So I don't know. So Final Cut comes out. David Putnam's book, was it David Putnam? About the making of Heaven's Gate, and then all this literature came out about those. Did he read that stuff, or was he interested in any of those?
I read it and
read it, okay.
Talked to him about it. He didn't read it so much. I mean, of course, he loved Cimino. They were like really good friends. And he loved Cimino's devotion to detail and authentic detail. But
I mean, Michael Cimino is like Visconti. They're very similar, because you might know this on The Leopard, Burt Lancaster and Alan Dillon and Claudia Cardinale. I mean, he would have hidden things. On the set, he would have actual things had to be in the drawers that would have been in that part of Italy. Was Cimino like that? Things that are invisible to create the spirit or the spiritual essence of a thing.
I don't know specifically, but I would imagine yes. Yes. I mean, they spent, I don't know, maybe like 20 people spent a holiday weekend aging fake money that, just kind of came out of somebody's wallet and changed hands momentarily on the screen. And it cost thousands of dollars.
That's right.
To do that. And he just did not want to compromise.
Yeah. I mean, you read accounts about the so-called visionary, or they are, so there's the so-called, but also maybe truly visionary. Maybe that's a thing. Mm-hmm. And I leave it up for the audience to sort out whether these things are, like a Stanley Kubrick or a Michael Cimino, or It's what is their name now? They are a different Chimino, right? That's sorry, yeah, I meant. It's
Pardon
hard.
me?
Well, I'm talking about Chiminos. Was it the gender or the just again Chimino, right? I think so.
Yeah, you're cutting out.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now, or?
Yeah, it's kind of random every once in a while. Yeah, like just then.
Oh, huh. Well, maybe I should say nothing and you do all the talking then. Is there any? That's not good. Is there any? Well, is there anything that comes to your mind? Broke down palace. After that, and coming. Anything that comes to your mind now about anything, color, what you've done in those years, or what stays with you now from those years, what you take with you now into the present from those, if that makes sense. I hope that's.
Just one last odd little thing, that to make black and white granite tombstone, you need to like finish up with a blue tinted varnish.
Okay.
That's what it took to make it look real.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, you love paint, right?
Yes.
You love these kinds of things, these materials. And you've lived with them over many years, right?
Yes. Yeah. Really, from the 70s to the 2000s.
2000s. Are those things for you? Or would you say that what we're talking about now is as important as anything else
In my life?
in general, in the arts, in your life, or in culture in general? Are these things? Well, are these things that people take for granted? You think, or don't?
I think they do take them for granted.
And what is the consequence of those? So what does that mean, to take them for granted? Or what do they? Well, talk a little bit more about that. Or what you think? Or living, or
Oh gosh, that's kind of random. I would wish that people would take color more personally. I think people can be frightened of color.
oh, color phobia.
Yeah.
What made that? What makes that random? I didn't see it as random. I thought it followed.
Oh, your question was just like so broad. It was.
Oh, it's a big question. I see.
Yeah.
I do that sometimes. Well, to me, broad thing. So to me, big things are really small. So maybe I'm wrong about that. But go ahead. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to throw too much at you.
I just think it is kind of miraculous that, as I said before, that people have access to colors. It's not just only available to the upper classes.
Okay.
You can go to Walmart and buy a gallon of whatever color paint you can imagine. And I think that gives people a different way to think about the world. They have this. There's just all these materials and tools that they're not just available to specialty people. You don't have to grind your own pigments and have an apprentice to like separate all the egg whites from the eggs for your tempera.
Okay.
It's like an opportunity for artists, up and coming artists, I think.
People used to do that, though. Have you done that? Have you separated pigments? I'm sure you have, right?
I have not.
You have not. Okay. But it sounds like you've done things that are similar to that, or you've done some work, things that would strike me as an outsider as close to that or equivalent to that when they're probably not.
Well, I mean, there was the taking all the dozens and dozens of containers of like peacock blue iridescent eyeshadow, and powdering them and mixing them with shellac and painting part of the floor. I mean,
that's a big deal. Yeah. When did you do that?
Oh, in Milwaukee, of course.
Oh, Milwaukee.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. That was some good times there.
Sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it. I know that you sometimes express, I don't try to find the right word. You often get interested in things that other people are not as interested, I guess, right? So the things we're talking about now, people might, I don't know if they find it boring, but they don't see what's in there, right? It's kind of, maybe it's a lack of curiosity. I don't know what it is, maybe, or it's hard to know. But
well, I'm sure there are things that other people speak about that don't excite me, but I mean, I'm true. I'm saying something true when I say that when I start discussing the intricacies of paintbrushes, there's not many people that want to hear that.
Okay. They don't want to hear it because it's not important to them, or
it's they don't have experience. They don't care. Doesn't matter.
It matters to you though, right?
Right. Yeah. When I find somebody who likes paint or like tools, then we can have a good discussion.
I know people can't see from this camera here, but see onto your, what is it, to the, I don't know. No, the other side, all these tools, when I first saw, I didn't know what half of that stuff was. I really didn't, I don't know. Well, at first I thought, it looked like I was in a tailoring shop or a shoemaker or something. It looked like that. That's the only time I had seen anything like that. Mm-hmm. I guess it's similar. I don't know. It's not the same thing. You're not making.
Well, it's making things, making three-dimensional things.
Yeah. Three-dimensional.
Right. Yeah. With leather in the shoe shop or metal here.
Huh. I guess that takes us to the present, but there's a long road. I guess it's an equally long road from, I don't know, 99, 2000, September 11, 2001 and then a farm. Is that true? You went to a farm. I don't want to does that get too far afield, or unintended, maybe ahead of?
Yeah, that's next time.
Next time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say now, Joe, at this moment?
Yeah, I want to say goodbye.
Oh, okay.
It's time.
It's time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your generosity and a lot to think about in that.